less accusations of pedophilia, and we did actually harm no animals in this. Well, yeah, it was a big departure for me, a complete new territory to some degree. Working in a studio system in America with British actors and Belgian actors, and particularly with a script that wasn't mine, was definitely a new territory, which is one of the things that was very attractive to me. That was encouraging because it was new, and I had a sense of relief not having to write the script myself. And I enjoyed reading this, the words of Hardy. I fell in love with it at first sight, so I jumped on board.
Well, this is material that people in the audience may know. Hardy's piece is something that's familiar, but I want to revisit what you just said and ask you to elaborate. The idea of, instead of initiating or writing a piece, to come in as an interpreter, I guess. Not only of a piece of literature, but then interpreting something that has been interpreted for the screen before as well. Tell us about that process, tell us about why then you saw that as kind of liberating or something you wanted to pursue.
Well, first of all, I decided not to watch the other film. Or I saw 20 minutes of it, but it's made by 3 of my heroes. I've always been in love with Julie Christie, it's a long time ago, and John Schlesinger is a magnificent filmmaker. Nick Roque behind the camera, even more so, one of my huge heroes. So I found it intimidating, and I decided that I would pretend that this is a one-off love affair between Thomas Hardy and Thomas Vinterberg. Close my eyes to the past. This is a book that deserves many interpretations, and this is a book that, to me, that has such a modern portrait, particularly of a lady, but also of being a man, that I thought it was incredibly relevant, and first and foremost, very moving. There was this thing happening in my head when I read it. That has to happen before making a movie. They stood out to me, and they stayed with me. And I thought, I want to pursue this. And to some degree, I followed the same instinct as I've done with my other movies. I pursued a sense of purity and honesty and authenticity in the characters. And so in that sense, it wasn't that far from what I've done before.
You referenced the gender roles, and something I was thinking about as I was watching it, the film the second time. And that is that we have Carrie's character, strong woman, and we have not only Matthias's character, but the other men in the film who embody different types of maleness. Maybe you could elaborate on some of those gender roles and what struck you about them and how you sought to interpret them from a modern perspective.
Well, to me, the guys together form a piano chord, which sort of plays the universal song of being a man in a beautiful sense of harmony. I think that Oak's character stand out as a sort of role model to me, inspirational to the degree, because that here's a man who's able to listen to a woman and actually see and give space to a woman, and yet still be so much a man, which I think is a rarity, which I think is I thought was inspirational, and which could only be possible because of this handsome dude here.
So, to follow up on that then, why Matthias, and then I'll ask him to say the same thing to you, but why was Matthias the one for this role, and what struck you about him?
Well, other than being a brilliant actor, maybe you should read it. The first thing, he interviewed me for this. It's not the other way around.
Tell me about that.
He was like, Thomas, what do you want to do with this film? Blah, blah, blah. He asked me all the questions that I was supposed to ask him, which was great. And then he said, why me? And I said, well, because you can't lie. And here's an actor who's so sincere and so sensible, and yet so handsome. And that's why he's become such a big star so quickly. And so for me, there was no other way around it. There was no one else I could see that could have that combination of being so sensible and yet so manly.
Matthias, tell us about that first
I need to
conversation.
process this for a second.
Tell us about that first conversation you
Pay me
had.
later.
with
Okay. Well, I remember like one day, of course, I read the screenplay, and then I think it was quite unexpected. Was it announced that you were going to call me? I don't know. Anyway, all of a sudden I get this foreign number. I pick up, and there's this very vivid voice. Hello, Matthias. It's Thomas. Thomas. I don't know Thomas. Where do I know Thomas from? Yeah, Thomas Vinterberg. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, whoa, this is Thomas Vinterberg. You know, this is considered and righteously considered one of the greatest directors, European movie directors. And that's true. No, and all of a sudden I have him on the phone calling me directly, and I was so curious and honored, and I was so curious about what his take would be on the material that I started firing questions. But it was not like, and he felt it like I was interviewing him, but I was just like really interested in what his take on it was. I was interested in what he was thinking about it. And then it became a very open discussion, and it went, it was very inspired, and then a week later he came to see me in Brussels. And then that's the funny chapter, the second chapter of the story, is, in my opinion, Thomas Vinterberg, is someone who has been around for many, many years. So I have this idea of Thomas Vinterberg being 50-something, 60-something. So there I show up in the hotel lobby in Brussels. I'm looking around like, where's Thomas Vinterberg?
There's his son.
Yeah. And all of a sudden I have this incredibly handsome young man, vivid eyes, sparkling the eyes, and here he is, Matthias. I'm like, yeah, that must be his assistant. Thomas! Oh my God, this is impressive. And so then I realized that the celebration, who was like one of, it almost reinvented cinema in the mid-90s, was made when he was 28. Can you believe that? Do you believe it yourself, Thomas?
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
started
wow.
early. Yes. Well,
And then we met, and then it was clear that
wonderful. I enjoyed this.
you like it? Let me give you some more. No, but what I liked about the exchange, it was very vivid, enthusiastic, and energetic, and that's how he works on set. He assembles a team from which he senses that if you put these people together, it would generate a very natural synergy, and then he infuses that with so much enthusiasm that it generates a playfulness. And I think playfulness is one of the most interesting sources of creativity. And he's like permanently on that track, and he works hard as hell, but at the same time it's all about enjoying the work and enjoying each other.
I want to pick up on two things you just said. I want to get to the interpretation in a moment, but you just mentioned the word playfulness.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment, and is that something that you think about in relation to how you work with actors, or you set the tone on a set? Was that specific to this particular set, or is that a nature of how you work? Is that a fair word to use?
Playfulness and deep wisdom. Yes, I do. I do get enthused by working with actors. This is where I feel home. That's possibly why I've been doing theater as well. The character work, the work around these guys and girls, is what awakens me the most. How to get behind the surface of these people, how to get them layered and rational and flawed and vivid and moving. It's a constant pursuit, and I am enthused by that, and that maybe translates as playfulness.
So how does that manifest itself on the set, or when you're working with the actors?